everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jamie.
And this is Zack and Jamie Need to Know.
This is our podcast where we need to know things. It all started because Zach needed to know a lot of things, and then he met me, and I needed to know a lot of things. And so we were like, what if we made a podcast about needing to know things? So today, what do we need to know?
All the things.
No, that's not true.
Just kidding. We'll get there. Today was actually the idea that sparked everything.
Watergate.
Yeah, it is Watergate.
I got excited. I said it before you said it because you're trying to build suspense, right?
Watergate.
It's Watergate. So what is Watergate?
A hotel.
Both a hotel. And now it's an apartment complex. Santa told me that today. We can talk about that later.
That's going to confuse people.
That's okay.
Well, I remember always believing it had something to do with communists. And I know it happened around Nixon's era.
But what was it? Because I feel like there was a hotel and some tapes involved, and somebody recorded something. Nixon, Deep Throat. These are the things I know. Deep Throat was the source.
See, I didn't know Deep Throat was connected to Watergate.
I might be wrong.
Pause. I couldn't help myself. So I didn't know any of that. Yeah, from my take, what I remember hearing, and I never bothered to check up on it, was CIA infiltrated this hotel where I assumed communist guests were staying and investigated them, snooped around the room, whatever.
Okay.
And that's what I thought the Watergate scandal was.
And is that the scandal, or was the scandal, did they cover something else up? What is the scandal? That's what I don't know.
Oh, no. To me, that doesn't even really seem...
But it's called a scandal, right?
Yeah, for me, that's out.
Okay, I don't actually...
We got a lot of scandals these days. That one, sneaking into somebody's hotel room, seems pretty tame.
It does seem tame, I agree. Let's find out what Watergate was.
I'm down.
Okay, so that's the information I have and the information Zach has.
All right.
Watergate salad. What's that? Now I'm like, what's that? I'm gonna look up a delicious...
Also referred to as pistachio delight or shut the gate salad. It's a dessert salad. Pass. Okay.
Wait, I would eat a dessert salad. What's in it? Jello? Pistachio?
Pistachio pudding, canned pineapple, whipped topping, crushed pecans, and marshmallow.
Good.
No.
We're making this.
No, you can have it.
I'm going to make you eat it.
Nope. I'm going to go look up real Watergate.
We're making it. We'll be having a Watergate salad on next week's.
You take your Watergate salad. I'm going to have my Watergate scandal.
A major political controversy.
I feel like Britannica is usually.
We like Britannica because I feel like they're sourced well.
Don't they make encyclopedias?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, as a teacher, if a kid cited Britannica, I would be like, okay, all right.
To be fair, Wikipedia these days is usually fairly accurate, but there are those jokesters who like to change it.
Yeah.
It's usually pretty obvious when something doesn't belong, though. So the Watergate scandal.
The Watergate scandal.
Is a scandal, apparently.
It's interlocking political scandals of the administration of
President Richard M. Nixon.
And they were revealed following the arrest of 5 burglars, which I feel like...
Burglars?
Okay. At the DNC. Burgling? What did they burgle?
Well, the DNC headquarters in the Watergate office apartment hotel.
So they burgled from the DNC headquarters and the Watergate office apartment hotel complex in Washington, D.C.
Isn't it just me? That seems a little weird. Office, apartment, hotel.
That's a lot.
One of these things is not like the other.
Maybe that's a thing downtown D.C. because...
It was so June 17, 1972. The 70s were kind of weird from what I've heard.
Yeah, I don't know. So 1974...
I thought this happened in the 60s, so there's that.
Okay. I actually thought it happened in the 60s as well, but that's not when Nixon was president, right?
Well, see, and my understanding was that it happened... Well, I guess I don't have an understanding. I thought it happened in the 60s, but also while he was president. I guess I don't really know when Nixon took office.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know a lot. Okay,
scroll. He gets blamed for Vietnam, so that was late 60s, 70s.
Was he in office... Look, can we look that up really quick? We need to have that information. Yeah. Maybe you guys have that information, but Zach and Jamie, we don't have that information right now.
Nixon tenure.
Oh, he resigned, so that's going to matter.
69 to 74.
Okay.
So I thought it was like 69, basically.
Okay.
I'm sticking to that story.
And summer of 69.
Okie dokie. So on August 9, 1974, facing likely impeachment for his role in covering the scandal, he became the only U.S. president to resign. He was really close to not being the only one, though, because a lot of people thought Biden was going to fully step down early
But he's
and
not going
she'd
to.
replace him. But instead, she's just going to run.
Yeah.
That sounds smart.
There you go.
I'm Mark. Okay, so he didn't get impeached. He resigned. Said, no, thank you.
Right.
It was burglars. I thought it was the CIA. What kind of burglars?
4 of them formerly had been active in the CIA.
Hey, I was right.
Activities against Fidel Castro in Cuba, though often referred to in the press as Cubans, only 3 of the 4 were Cubans.
Police apprehended them. They weren't very good burglars, and if they were in the CIA, they weren't very good CIA agents either.
No, wait. They had been active in the CIA. They weren't CIA agents. They'd just been active in agency activities against Fidel Castro in Cuba.
So they're like informants or something?
Yeah, they just help out.
That's okay. That's valid.
Yeah.
They probably did flip them. Like, y'all, we're going to use you, or you go to jail.
A former high-ranking CIA officer only recently appointed to the staff of the White House and former FBI agent working as a counsel at the time of the break-in.
The 5th person who wasn't associated with the CIA, James W. McCord, was security chief of the Committee to Re-elect the President, later known popularly as CREEP. I love that.
Preponderance of early media reports driven by a successful White House public relations campaign claimed that there had been no involvement by the Nixon administration or the re-election committee. Meanwhile, the conspiracy destroyed evidence, including their burglary equipment and a stash of $100 bills.
Jeb Magruder, deputy director of CREEP, burned transcripts of wiretaps from an earlier break-in at the DNC's offices.
So this was burning transcripts of wiretaps.
Well,
They're burning wiretaps. So the point is, that's what happened.
The wiretaps are from the first break-in. So this was break-in number 2. So this break-in, Watergate was to cover up something else. 1. Why are they breaking into stuff? What's that valuable in politics?
Later, Nixon took records of his phone calls and
tapes.
Conversations.
You said tapes.
I did. The president ordered the FBI to tamp down its investigation. Later, this order revealed what became known as the Nixon tape. Nixon's secret recordings of his phone calls and conversations became the smoking gun, proving that the president had been part of a criminal cover-up from the beginning. So he covered up Watergate.
So he's behind the first break-in and then needed the second one to cover
But what was it covering up? You know what I'm saying?
Something tells me we're not going to find out what they were looking for.
I think we find it. We're going to have all the information. Woodward and Bernstein were fed leaks by their sources.
Throughout the 72 campaign.
Who were Woodward and Bernstein? They were reporters, right? We need to look up who were Woodward and Bernstein.
Watergate. Okay, now.
They wrote a book.
Who were Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. So he's a journalist.
At the Post, at the Washington Post. Numerous government investigations and the event. So their release of the scandal is how they got Nixon to resign.
So I never knew it directly led to his resignation.
I didn't either.
I actually always associated him resigning with Vietnam.
Maybe it does. We still don't know what was there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So, okay. Their key figures, they broke the story. So Deep Throat was feeding them leaks. Leaks again about the break-ins? We don't know.
We don't really know yet.
So maybe the break-ins. Deep Throat wasn't revealed for 30 years.
Oh, that's a really big deal. That they would not reveal their source and that they could protect their source because they were journalists.
That's a long time. Yeah, I mean, they probably waited for the dude to pass.
I think
we ain't got nobody to protect them.
Let's ask, why was Deep Throat revealed? That's a great question.
Who was Deep Throat? Oh, hold on. Where's the safe search at? Gotta be fucking careful.
We're fine. The internet is going to be kind to us. Who was Deep Throat in Watergate?
Oh, yes.
Mark Felt, right?
No, Mark Felt was the guy who was revealed.
We're good.
Okay.
Nora Ephron, eventually, she figured it out.
But it was Mark Felt. I thought they were saying FBI director name was Mark Felt, and that's who they...
His daughter convinced him to say that it was him.
Oh, okay. What was it that we wanted to know about?
How did Deep Throat know about Watergate?
How did Deep Throat...
Okay.
So he wasn't revealed as Mark Felt until 2005.
That was not that long ago.
Yeah.
That was 19 years ago.
I mean...
Yeah.
He's been out publicly for less time than he was kept a secret still.
That's kind of cool. Okay, we're going to read some things.
So he was the former FBI associate director, though. So they were the same person. Oh, I thought they told the director who it was. The director knew because it was him. That's
Whoa,
crazy.
Okay.
The associate director of the FBI at the time, Mark Felt, was Deep Throat. So he had to be anonymous because he's a big deal. Interesting. Shout out, Mark.
One of the biggest mysteries in politics and journalism. They insisted they would not reveal his identity until he died or consented. Okay.
Well, he died in 2008, so 3 years before he was like, you could tell everybody, man.
That's why his daughter convinced him to do it.
Shout out to her.
Vanity Fair revealed that Deep Throat in an article. Okay, attorney acting.
That man's a hero. We should be celebrating him. We can't do that if we don't know who they are, right?
Right.
There's a film based on the book, and the book is called All the President's Men. Yeah, I've heard of that. I don't think I've seen it.
We should watch that.
Have you seen it?
No, but I know that book is based on Watergate.
I didn't know that.
Or that movie, right? Is it a book?
Yeah, no, it's based on a book, and the book was based on this. Or they wrote the book. Bernstein and Woodward wrote the book.
Crotch practice.
So Howard Simons was the managing editor of the Post during Watergate. He dubbed the secret informant Deep Throat, alluding to both the deep background status of his information and the widely publicized 1972 pornographic film of the same name.
So they knew it was a porno name. Deep Throat's identities was a big mystery. $2,300, plastic gloves to hide fingerprints, burglary tools, a walkie-talkie, a radio scanner capable of listening to police frequencies, cameras with 40 rolls of films, tear gas guns, multiple electronic devices, in which they attended a plant in the Democratic Committee offices, and notebooks containing the telephone number of White House official E. Howard Hunt. One of the men was a CIA agency employee and security man for Nixon's committee of the re-election.
Again, a creep.
A creep. He was a creep. Washington Post.
I love that. Bernstein Woodward pursued the story for 2 years.
God, that's some journalism right there.
And the scandal eventually implicated many members of Nixon's White House, culminating in Nixon becoming the first U.S. president to resign. This is probably interesting, though. Methods of communication, I'm sure it was on the super duper DL.
Yeah.
A source in the executive branch who had access to information at CRP as well as the White House. An incurable gossip.
Listen how cool this is. Woodward claimed that he would signal Deep Throat that he desired a meeting by moving a flower pot with a red flag on the balcony of his apartment. When Deep Throat wanted a meeting, he would make special marks on page 20 of Woodward's copy of the New York Times. He would circle the page number and draw a clock to the hands. This is so cool.
How did he know which copy was Woodward's? Like, I guess newspapers were delivering.
Oh, yeah.
So he just walked back.
That makes sense, yeah.
But if he has a balcony of his apartment, it's not on the ground floor.
Maybe he got his mail delivered downstairs or something, and they put it there.
I'm probably overthinking it, but I'm just like, I don't see how you make sure they don't miss it.
I mean, maybe they do miss it sometimes.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Woodward was supposed to be here. I don't have time for this shit.
Havel said that the copies of the New York Times were not delivered to individual apartments, but delivered in an unaddressed stack to the building's reception desk. There's your question. There would have been no way to know which copy was intended for Woodward. Woodward, however, as stated in the early 70s, the interior courtyard was an alleyway and had not been yet bricked off, and his balcony was visible from the street level to passing pedestrians.
Yeah, so there's no way to know which copy was his. He needed to look through the stack, and if it was gone, then he would miss the meeting, I guess.
Former neighbor Herman Kippenberg stated that Woodward would sometimes come to his door looking for his marked copy of the Times, claiming, "I like to have it in mint condition, and I like to have my own copy."
So in his book, The Secret Man, so Woodward wrote another book, Loyalist to and Admirer of J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh, so none of that's really true. Actually, they said they did all these things, but honestly, he just called him on the phone. And then his wife's like, "Oh, yeah, he used to call all the time."
Wait, what?
Yeah. So they told this little story, and they're like, maybe they did that like a couple of times. You were instantly not in, right? Like, this is ridiculous. So it actually was kind of ridiculous.
I wonder what section you'd find this book in. Is it in nonfiction or fiction?
That's the question.
Because that seems fictionalized.
In public statements, the Felt's family called him an American hero. The secret man Woodward describes Felt as a loyalist. After Hoover's death, Felt became angry and disgusted when Gray, a career naval officer, the question is, was he disgruntled or was he a hero?
That's a good question.
Okay, let's go.
It definitely depends on how you feel about it. Because I would think it was for the greater good.
I still don't know what's going on. I understand there were tapes and recordings, but what did they get?
So Nixon's behind the burglars.
Okay, yes. Who were going to place tape recorders. The burglars were going to place tape recorders in the Democratic National Committee or something.
I thought they were trying to burn tap transcripts.
That was the next one, right?
So wait, so they said what the first one was?
No, that's what I'm asking. I'm lost.
So I don't remember where you ever got tape recorders from.
There was a list of the things. Nixon's secret recordings of his phone calls.
Because he recorded the phone calls. So that would be the wiretaps back then.
Right, okay.
Because, yeah, like, they're not tapping the wires like they do these days.
Right.
Okay, so it was like a manual process. All right, we connected that dots. That made sense. Deep Throat placed the tape recorders that were able to get Nixon's secret recordings of his phone calls and conversations in the Oval Office. Deep Throat, a.k.a. Mark Felt, placed those.
Right. That thing, right?
The director of the FBI or associate director of the FBI
look it up.
would probably
Did
have
Mark
access
Felt
to the
place-
Oval Office. No one other than he could have been Deep Throat. Installed a secret taping system in the White House. In February 1971, the Secret Service, at President Nixon's instructions, installed a secret taping system in the White House. The system was sound activated, which operated automatically and was tied to the Secret Service's presidential locator system.
Okay.
When President Nixon entered a recording area, the beeper he carried signaled the recorder to switch to a record/pause mode. The tape machines began recording whenever microphones picked up any sound.
And he did this? Nixon put this in.
Nixon had the Secret Service
put it
do
in.
it. Okay, so the tapes were located on White House telephones, including the Lincoln Sitting Room, Oval Office, President's Hideaway Office, in the old Executive Office Building, in the Cabinet Room, and in Aspen Lodge at the President's Retreat in Camp David.
This was on the up and up. People knew this happened. He installed the taping system because he wanted his administration to be the best chronicled in history. He wanted an accurate record of meetings without inhibiting effect of note takers.
So wait, that's the why he wanted? That's weird. Okay, well, and then they recorded 950 tapes comprising 3,700 hours of listening time. Except for like modern days, which are more publicized due to media, he probably had mission accomplished in 1973 when the tapes were turned off. The problem is, if he set this up and you were doing shady stuff, did you forget?
So that's what we don't know. He acknowledged that Nixon's presidency was ultimately brought down in large measure by the tapes.
He wanted it to be chronicled. He didn't even connect the dots when he started doing shady stuff. He was just like, I'm going to be such a legendary president. And Watergate was probably just part of the greater plan to be a legendary president. He was like doing whatever he had to do by any means. Malcolm X might have approved.
The Nixon tapes are still in the archives.
Does it say that? More than 2,000 hours are publicly available.
Yeah.
I want to watch a little bit. Not an hour.
Okay.
I want to watch the ones directly related to Watergate conversation.
I bet we could just find
Or not watch.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm thinking TV. This is in the 70s. They did have TV and stuff, but those recordings were clearly phone recordings. So, okay. Well, that was his undoing. I assume he had access. The director of the FBI, associate director of the FBI.
But no, he didn't do it. I still don't understand what happened.
Wait, so this is interesting. He planned to use the tapes to write his memoirs. Haldeman acknowledged that Nixon's presidency was ultimately brought down in large measure by the tapes. In July 1974, after a year of struggle over control of the tapes, the Supreme Court declared that the need for evidence in the Watergate trials outweighed the president's right to keep the tapes private.
Okay.
As a result of this ruling, Nixon was compelled, I'm thinking legally, by the judge, to release what became known as the smoking gun tape of June 23, 1972, which showed that he had engaged in an obstruction of justice relating to investigation of the Watergate burglary 6 days earlier. He subsequently resigned on August 9th, 1970.
So he put these tapes in place. He recorded himself. Then he accidentally caught himself taking the burglar off.
He knew he had a tape that incriminated him at some point.
Right.
But it didn't matter. The judge was basically like, you got to release the tapes or you're going to jail. That's what compelled usually implies. So he gave them the incriminating tape, I guess the smoking gun they're calling it, and
So there are people who are Nixon tapes reviewers. The purpose of the archival review is to make conversations that legally can be made public, to restrict the portions that contain national security information or violating the privacy of a living person, and to return to the Nixon estate those conversations determined to be purely personal.
This is a lot more complicated than I thought.
I still don't have a clear picture of what is going on here.
So Nixon resigned because he covered up the break-in, not because he ordered the break-in?
Yeah, I think so.
Why would you want to cover it up if you're not behind it in the first place, though?
So that's what we have to figure out. Yeah. If the conversations relate to Watergate or the president's official duties, NARA may release them to the public, provided they do not reveal national security information.
Once Nixon died, NARA was required to return to the Nixon estate conversations concerning purely personal matters. So they eventually had to give those tapes back after he passed.
Right.
But only the ones that were personal conversations. Yeah. So I guess anything that was official president's business, they're keeping. They still have. They're controlling. The Nixon estate agreed to give back to the archive some personal conversations, especially those that relate to politics. And I mean, I guess that's good. Having a little bit of personal flair, so he's not just all president all the time, but a conversation of him talking to his wife or something about, hey, we got this happened today. It's a great day for America. That'd be pretty cool, actually.
Right, yeah.
I've heard a lot of things about Nixon. Mainly negative. I think he's perceived as negative. But at the time, he was loved by a lot of people. Not like JFK was loved, but there was a lot of people that loved Nixon too, I think. Until, when he got elected the first time.
Okay.
Up to that point.
At least half of them,
Because I think he took a hit for the war, and then obviously this, and he resigned over this. So I think he was really high, had a lot of support when he won. And then, how that goes. It'd be like that sometimes. So this is all about tapes. This is like us. Nixon frequently changed topics midstream and made cryptic allusions, which add to the challenge of deciphering intelligible conversation. Dang, today I learned me and Richard Nixon had something in common. That's cool.
Numerous noises on the tapes that obstruct sound and audibility of the words are clattering, drinking glasses, cups, dishes, the shuffling. Okay.
My man he had a podcast. No, like a reality radio show.
Yeah, kind of. More like a reality radio show. The knocking of a knee or elbow, which housed tiny microphones. That's so cool.
I mean, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, that is cool.
So the limitation of transcripts was revealed in a conversation between Nixon and H.R. Haldeman about Mark Felt, the number 2 man at the FBI, who turned out to be Deep Throat.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Nixon never found out Deep Throat was Mark Felt. Nixon died in 94.
They did suspect him of Felt. They did in this conversation, which took place 4 months after the break-in. They're like, Felt told them.
Nixon and Haldeman suspected Felt of leaking information about Watergate to the press.
Yeah.
They wanted to get him out of the FBI, but they had to do so carefully because they feared he would go public with his knowledge about Watergate and its cover-up. Nixon suggested making Felt an ambassador, adding that one had to know how to finesse people to keep them happy. At least 2 scholars had transcribed the word ambassador as bastard. Maybe we make him a bastard.
Yeah. Some of the conversations are mundane, while others are eye-opening, exciting, amusing, and thought-provoking.
So there's conversations covering trade in the Vietnam War, Sit King Sick. The Nixon White House was a serious place, but the tapes occasionally contain a few funny moments.
I can see that. That's cool.
After the break-in occurred in June 1972, President Nixon orchestrated a cover-up designed to block the investigation.
Yeah, okay, so that's why he got... okay.
As part of the cover-up, he led a public relations campaign designed to discredit his opponents and critics. I mean, they do that now.
Yeah.
That's like all the commercials I see. Part of his strategy involved his repeated reference back to his own experience as a young congressman investigating Alger Hiss, a State Department employee accused of being a spy for the Soviet Union. That's why I heard communism.
Okay.
I believed his propaganda. That's not cool.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't propaganda.
Well, if it wasn't true and that's the story he was pushing, you just have to read the Hiss chapter in his memoir. So he wrote a whole chapter about Alger Hiss. Hiss's defenders said that the courts, not Nixon's investigating committee, should look into charges against Hiss. Huh. Those aren't much of defenders if they're just like, nah, man, don't let him do it. You guys do it.
The National Archives may copy tapes themselves for no charge. You can bring your own blank tape or CD. Slowly, the tapes are becoming available online at a few websites. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they should be everywhere, right?
Most notably, the University of Virginia's Miller Center for Public Affairs, which is putting all of the tapes and tapes logs on its website, which there's a link here.
We're clicking it. Clicking.
The Miller Center from University of Virginia.
Just type it in.
Nixon tapes?
Yes, but sure, why not? The Nixon tapes.
The Nixon Library's website is also working toward making more of them. Okay.
The Nixon tapes.
Presidential recordings.
Oh, okay.
22,000.
Oh, shit.
Y'all done been putting in work. That's a lot.
Okay, let's listen to one. Let's hear something.
Conversation with Richard Nixon. June 23rd, 1972.
That's what you want?
Yes, that's the incriminating one. That's the smoking gun.
Then just type that in on the top. June 23rd, 1972. Nixon tapes.
Oh, shit. That's a lot of recordings. June 20th, June 20th, 7th. Bro, come on. We was so close. We got June 22nd. Now we in November. It's currently not available. To listen to it, please email Mike Greco.
We can't even listen. Yeah. This recording is not available on Miller Center. We're disappointed. Maybe they haven't been putting in the work. Did they get them taken away or something?
Oh, this was the day after.
Okay.
Maybe that's why. We tried.
We tried, but we're not going to hear any tapes.
If anybody out there is able to figure out how to listen to a Nixon tape and wants to let us know,
I don't know.
comment. We'll be happy to spread the word.
Ladies, get yourself a podcast co-host that checks himself out. Mine's available to date, but not to be a podcast co-host.
Just trying to be a daddy again. Hey, if you think we make pretty babies, hit me up. Okay, so recap time real quick.
Okay, bring us back because we had to get a snack.
We still don't know what the burglars were looking for. I need to know who Ron Haldeman is.
They were looking for
I don't know
tapes.
if Ron, that's his name.
The burglars were putting in tapes, right?
No, the tapes recorded Nixon talking about covering up the break-in. So we need to know what they were looking for because the tapes were just like happening consistently because Nixon wanted the Secret Service to set up recordings and document his whole presidency so that it'd be the most archived presidency in history.
What were the burglars looking for in Watergate?
That's what I have Google up for.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out.
That's fine, but the people can't see it when you do it on your phone.
No, that's true, but I've been asking you to tell me for so long that I just had to look it up myself.
All right. What were Watergate burglars? Doesn't say. Burglarizing the DNC headquarters at the Watergate complex to photograph campaign documents and install listening devices in telephones. So they got tapes from the White House and the Oval Office and everything because Nixon had the Secret Service doing that.
And he was trying to hide that.
Well, he thought
That's
he could.
why he needed to get the tapes.
I think he thought he could.
The tapes had the recording of him doing this.
No, I think you're going down the wrong path there. So his tapes, he thought he'd just be able to keep private till a judge compelled him to. That was separate. This, him installing listening devices in the Democratic National Committee headquarters is because he's a Republican president.
Right.
And it was getting ready to be a re-election, right?
That was the point.
So this was all just about
it was
that.
Yeah.
So Watergate burglars were related to his re-election campaign?
Yeah. That's it. He just wanted to win.
How wild is it that he wanted to install recording devices on Watergate phones, and then the recording devices he installed on his own phones were his downfall?
Yeah.
It's irony.
I mean, that's the whole point, right?
A little bit of irony.
What is the irony behind it?
Okay. I'm getting excited. This is wild.
Yeah, it's getting interesting. It took us a minute to figure out what's going on.
So, okay. Let me walk through this. I have some notes. Nixon and the burglars and the break-in are one side. Deep Throat, Woodward, and Bernie, who I call is Bernstein, are the other side. Haldeman falls on Nixon's side. I still don't know who he is.
It's like Halderman. Chief of something.
Who was Haldeman with Nixon? Harry Robbins, Bob Haldeman.
Chief of staff to President Nixon.
There you go. Okay. So he's his chief of staff. So they're one side of it.
Okay.
They are focused on re-election.
Yes.
And Nixon and Haldeman both seem to have a very, by any means necessary. That's the term I used earlier.
Yeah.
To win this election.
Right.
Do we even know who he's up against?
72? I don't know. Is it got to be Peter Booker?
Hubert Humphrey, that's 1968. Oh, wait. He won in 72. He already got reelected. Oh, no. He won in 72, November.
Yeah. Wait,
so
what?
all of this happened in June of 72, before the election in November. And he was reelected. But it didn't come out until 74.
And that's when he left.
And that's why Deep Throat spent 2 years gathering information about it. Oh.
So they were like, actually, this was bad.
There was a lot that went into this. I get it now. Okay, so who did Nixon beat in 72? I should have asked this first, but I didn't know he won. George McGovern.
He defeated with a landslide victory. So he didn't even need to do this, is the point.
No. It really doesn't seem like. And that's the thing. I swear when he got elected in 68. But you know what? Guy. The war kicking off in 69, and that made him a bad guy. He might have been worried.
Maybe.
He might have been worried enough to get desperate. Desperate people do stupid stuff. Burglars campaign documents and install phone recorders in the office apartment hotel, not just a hotel.
Right,
I always thought it was a hotel, but it's also, more importantly, the Democratic National Committee's headquarters at the time. Didn't know that. The communist thing was a deflection by Nixon.
Yeah,
who tried to deflect blame. Alger Hiss.
But that was totally wrong.
Well, I think it said something like Hiss defenders made I thought about it. It's an actually good point. They were like, look, if he's guilty, how about the courts investigate, not Nixon? And they're basically like, if you got enough evidence, cool. Otherwise, we don't trust you.
Yeah.
And so 72, I think by then we're super entrenched in Vietnam. By then we've been there for 3 years or 2.5 years.
Okay,
depending on the timing.
so basically,
he was probably a little panicky, but I still don't think he needed to do that. And had he not,
so we know he did it.
He did it,
and then he resigned. He's not a crook.
He resigned. I guess who took over? What is it? His VP or after Nixon resigned? Because if he resigned in 74, there's still 2 more years before the next election. Oh, it was Ford. Okay. I thought Ford might have been who he beat that election, but I didn't want to say that out loud.
Ford took the office after Richard's next resignation amid the scandals.
I heard that Nixon resigned over Watergate. I didn't think it was that big a deal to make a president resign.
But he's the only one. Because so he was impeached, and then several have been impeached, right? But that doesn't really mean they need to resign. Because Clinton was impeached.
So or they were in the process, and then of course Trump, and then Biden had an investigation about impeachment.
It's a thing now, right?
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of particulars. I don't really dig that.
A resignation is a big deal.
He won in a landslide, but was the burglary successful? Because if they were,
no, that's what they're saying. They said, look that up. Was the because they got caught, right?
They did get caught.
With the
so the burglary was
on the door.
The burglary was unsuccessful. Cops interfered. It did say that in the beginning. What were they trying to do with the cover up though?
Getting rid of the tapes, right? Yeah. Let's figure it out now that we know more.
72, June 72 is when it happened.
5 men are arrested. Among the items found in the possession were the bugging devices, thousands of dollars in cash, and rolls of film. Okay.
Bob Woodward had his first meeting 3 days later with Deep Throat. I thought they had known each other for a while. Okay, so that actually really kicked things off. We did find out
they did know them later. He investigated and said the White House was not involved in the Watergate break-in.
So they initiated an internal investigation into the Watergate break-in and found no evidence in the White House. But that's the cover-up. We investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing.
Okay, the FBI had made connections between Nixon aides and the Watergate break-in. That's what happened.
Okay. The rest of it is the evidence gathering for 2 more years. He gets the second term after defeating George McGovern. The Watergate break-in trial began in January. So articles by Woodward and Bernstein start coming out in October. No, September they had the first one.
Right.
They reported that the Attorney General, John Mitchell, had controlled a secret fund to finance intelligence gathering specifically against Democrats.
Yeah.
Wow. wow, they were going to win that election no
Yeah.
matter what. And everybody was cool with it.
Yeah. So then the FBI's made connections between the break-in and October. He gets elected in November. And then that's when he says he didn't do it, right? The Watergate trial begins.
The burglars, at least 2 of them, that had ties to Creep. I think all of the people that were behind Watergate are tied to Creep, including the president, his cabinet, his chief of staff,
and then
another Nixon aide and FBI agent.
In a White House meeting, White House counsel tells them we have a cancer within close to the president's ground. They discuss how to pay the Watergate bribers as much as $1 million in cash to continue the cover-up.
Wow, man, they really did not want this getting out. And it's funny because now
he had to resign, yeah.
Now it's like, man, it really doesn't seem like that big a deal.
It really was, yeah, like it's so small. Like, now they would have made it, they'd have been like, eh.
I just want to point out that's $1 million in 1973.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. John Dean, who's the White House counsel to Nixon. We have a cancer within, close to the presidency that's growing. Oh, dang.
Watergate burglar James McCord's letter confessing the existence of a wider conspiracy is read in open court by the judge. The Watergate cover-up starts to unravel.
And like 2 weeks later, John Dean was like, yeah, I'll cooperate. Right after saying that to Nixon. Oh, man. So April 9th, Watergate.
They had made cash payouts to the Watergate burglars. And they said, yeah, we did this. The committee to reelect Nixon.
So, in April of 73, well before Nixon resigned, Ehrlichman, who I hadn't really heard of, and Haldeman resigned.
So April 30th is when he went address the nation, stressing his innocence.
They fired John Dean for cooperating. The Attorney General resigned, and then Nixon delivered his first address. Sam Ervin opens the Senate Select Committee on Presidential Campaign Activities to investigate Watergate. TV hearings, everybody could watch.
That's crazy.
Pre-C-SPAN days. The Post reports Dean told Watergate prosecutors he discussed the cover-up with Nixon 35 times.
Prosecutors discovered.
Hey, man, you sure you got it? Yes.
Do you have this?
Mr. President, I have it under control.
No, but like,
it's okay.
Are you sure you have this? Well, obviously he didn't.
Mr. President, I got it.
Obviously he was right to question him.
Hang up phone.
He did not do well.
30 seconds later. Bring, bring. Hello? This is the president.
He was
you sure you have it?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm good. The phone calls that he didn't have time to cover up.
Yeah, hey. Slipping. Got caught slipping.
Yeah.
Too much micromanaging. Trust your henchmen, man.
Trust your henchmen.
Trust your henchmen.
Trust your henchmen.
It's funny. There's a cartoon or a movie, I don't remember, but they make the joke where like one of the bad guys, the goons, isn't very useful, and he's like, it's so hard to find good help these days.
It's true. I agree with that joke.
Send your goons to college. College-educated goons.
Yeah, we want college-educated goons. On July, he admits to recording all the conversations, but he wants it disconnected so he set this up, and wow.
Alexander Butterfield was the former presidential appointment secretary, and he was the one who snitched on the tapes.
Right.
Nixon said stop 5 days later, and then I think he thought he could just keep them.
Yeah.
But from July to October, he refused to turn them over. I mean, he knew what was on the tapes.
Also the other thing, too, is he's like, there's national security on here. I can't just hand these out. He's not wrong. He is the president of...
He was being subpoenaed to submit them, and he kept filing appeals. That's amazing.
Yeah.
August.
Summarize the tapes for investigators. And they say no.
That's not good enough. Vice president resigned.
Okay.
Amidst bribery and income tax evasion charges unrelated to the Watergate break-in.
Oops. Oh,
So then we got Gerald Ford as vice, sworn in December.
So that's a weird situation. Why did we want Gerald Ford to be president all of a sudden? What a weird way for him to become vice president and then become the only... Well, that's kind of crazy. Oh, that's when he declares I'm not a crook. November 17, 1973. He's professing his innocence.
Hold on. Attempts a legal maneuver to avoid handing over Cox by suggesting you read that part. But then Nixon orders the firing of Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox, the Saturday Night Massacre.
Yeah, because he's basically like, get rid of them.
Attorney General Elliot Richardson and Deputy Attorney General William Ruckelshaus resign rather than carry out these orders. Solicitor General Robert Bork fires Cox. Several days later, Leon Jaworski is appointed as the second special prosecutor. Again, we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing.
Yeah. I'd like to start investigating myself for all
Excuse
my
me, sir.
wrongdoings.
You're investigating too well and uncovering too much. You're fired.
You're fired. We don't like you. We're going to investigate and find no wrongdoing. And that's when he was not a crook, finally.
I remember hearing, yeah, that's triggering something. There's a big gap from November of 73 to March of 74.
White House Watergate, though, reveals the existence of an 18.5-minute gap on the tape of Nixon having a conversation on June 20th. They're unable to explain the gap, although Nixon's secretary will later claim she accidentally erased the material.
Interesting. 18.5 minutes that we'll never get back, even from the smoking gun.
Wow.
Indictments handed down for the Watergate 7, including John Mitchell, H.R. Haldeman, and John Ehrlichman, but not Nixon?
They name him as an unindicted co-conspirator.
That's a bad look.
Then they're like, we're going to impeach him. And then July, the Supreme Court, Nixon surrenders dozens to the articles of impeachment are debated. The Supreme Court rules that Nixon must surrender the recordings.
Yep.
Then the articles of impeachment are debated and approved by the House Committee. Nixon releases the transcripts of the conversations known as the smoking gun. The transcripts reveal Nixon's involvement in the Watergate cover-up. I have never been acquitted to leave my office before my term is completed. As president, I must put the interests of Americans first. Therefore, I shall resign the president effective at noon tomorrow. He signed his letter of resignation, and Gerald becomes president. Nixon is pardoned by the president for any offenses he might have committed. What? Against the United States while president? Oh, so that's how Ford got to be vice president. I'm going to pardon you, and that's how they got rid of that middle guy.
Okay, so I think we're good there.
I mean, I know a lot right now.
Yeah, no, this was
Watergate was basically recorded himself, actually.
It was an unconditional pardon, too. So basically, everything you did, none of it matters.
So that's what happened. So that's how he got to be president.
But by the time of the pardon, enough Americans had become convinced that Nixon was guilty of crimes and that Ford had pardoned him as a quid pro quo for becoming president that the approval rating of the otherwise popular new president collapsed overnight. Yeah, no. So everybody knew about the handshake under the table. They're like, that's the only reason you became the VP was because he told you what was going on and was like, yo, I'm out, you're in charge. And he was like, all right, cool, I'll be president. That's why he only had one term. Actually, I don't even think he had the full term.
So Ronald Reagan's ascent to the presidency in 80 had very much to do with the rhetorical ability to break the cloud of gloom that Watergate, along with the U.S. failure in the Vietnam War, had cast upon the country.
Okay, well, the war's probably a bigger factor because I'm like, Watergate seems like a big deal now, but
it was a big deal then. It was huge.
I mean, I guess it probably did rock the boat.
The president, they found out the president who they just elected had tampered with the election.
Yeah, but in 72, it didn't get better till 80.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all should have fixed that in the 76 election. Yeah. Watergate was so synonymous with scandal that it became common to, tack on a gate. Yeah, well, we know that. Tailhook gate, trooper gate, spy gate, deflate gate.
Yeah, whatever.
Patriots gate could be summed up for most of those.
And the entire tape record of the eventually became available to the public. Okay. So they are available to the public now.
Just not on the UVA website we were exploring.
Where are they?
Well, I feel like YouTube had a result. We're just not going to show you the whole clip of news footage.
We need to find where they are and put them. I would like to link them in this podcast, like at the bottom.
We could probably do that.
That's what we're going to do.
Where can I listen to the Nixon tapes?
NixonTapes.org.
NixonLibrary.gov.
Digital or re-reviewed and re-released tapes. See, this feels like they got to make their own choices, right? September 2021 is not that long ago. Wow.
Those are the newly released ones, though? That's 3 years ago.
Oh, cool. So let's push a button. Let's listen. Wow, this was somebody's boring-ass job.
Sounded like they were jumping a new agent in. Dang.
You think?
Just whooping his ass. I mean, they're not a gang. They don't actually do that, but like
that's probably not what happened.
I know that's not what happened.
What else do you have any more questions that you need to know?
No, not
really.
Like
we're good.
This is just extra. This is pretty interesting. So this is the NixonLibrary.gov and White House tapes that they have from his presidency.
So we can show those.
Yeah.
All right. Have a nice sandwich out for the big yellow chicken.
Clap, clap.